All right, close your eyes for a second. I want you to do a little visualization exercise with me. It's February, it's probably gray outside where you are,
Yeah.
and you're planning that big summer vacation.
The escape.
The escape, exactly. And you want something iconic. You want New England. You want Maine.
So what's the image that pops into your head right now?
Oh, I can tell you exactly what it is. I mean, the tourism boards and the marketing departments have been perfecting this image for, what, 70 years now?
Right.
You are picturing an LL Bean catalog that is just, sprung to life. You see a perfect white lighthouse sitting on this dramatic rocky bluff.
Totally. And there are those pink granite rocks everywhere.
The pink granite, for sure. And most importantly, you see yourself. You're in a kayak.
Yes. And in my mind, the water is just glass. It's perfectly calm. It's shimmering. I'm probably just wearing a T-shirt, maybe a baseball cap.
Effortless. I'm paddling effortlessly. There's a seal, popping its little head up just to give me a cute nod. And then, scene change, I'm sitting on a dock eating a lobster roll that didn't cost me a second mortgage.
It is a beautiful dream. It really is. It's also what we in the industry, we call it the Instagram lie.
The Instagram lie. I like that.
Because while that perfect day can happen, I mean, it does exist, aiming for that as your baseline expectation is just setting yourself up for what our source material today calls a logistical gauntlet.
That phrase, logistical gauntlet, it really jumped out at me from the page. We are doing a deep dive today into what we're calling the Acadia Extension.
Right.
This is the whole world of coastal kayaking in Maine, specifically in the area around Acadia National Park. And the source material is just fascinating because it isn't a brochure at all. It reads more like a survival manual mixed with a love letter.
It's a huge reality check.
Yeah.
And we need to shatter that LL Bean image pretty early on here. We are not talking about a leisurely paddle on a lake in the Poconos. This isn't a lazy river float in Texas. Yeah. We are talking about the North Atlantic Ocean.
Let's dig into that phrase you used, environmental severity. That sounds, it sounds intense.
It is intense, and people just don't have a frame of reference for it. The water temperature in Maine, even in the middle of August when the air is, say, 80 degrees, the water itself is sitting at about 55 degrees Fahrenheit.
65? So that's, what, 12 Celsius?
About that. And that is dangerously cold. That's cold enough to induce an immediate physiological shock if you fall in unexpectedly.
Wow.
And then you add the tides. And again, people think they know tides. They don't.
Yeah.
We're not talking about a gentle rise and fall of a foot or two. We are talking about 12-foot tides.
A 12-foot vertical change in the water level? That's higher than a basketball hoop.
Every 6 hours. It moves billions of gallons of water. That kind of movement creates currents that can rival whitewater rivers, except they're happening in the open ocean. And it completely, totally alters the landscape. An island you can walk to at 10 in the morning might be surrounded by a mile of water at 4 in the afternoon.
And this brings us right to the core paradox of this whole topic. I mean, everyone knows Acadia National Park is just exploding in popularity. It's the most overcrowded park in the entire Northeast. You literally have traffic jams on the hiking trails.
It's become a victim of its own success.
Totally. And yet, the source argues that this exact same region offers total, absolute isolation. You can be the only human being for miles around, but of course, there's a catch.
There's a huge catch, and that catch is the skill gap. That isolation you're talking about, it exists, but it's behind a wall. And the price of admission isn't the $30 park pass for your car.
Right.
The real price is having the skill to actually leave the dock, to navigate in fog, to handle those tides, and to deal with that dangerously cold water. If you can pay that price in skill, you get the solitude. If you can't, you're stuck in that traffic jam on the Park Loop Road with everyone else.
So today, our mission is to figure out if that price is worth paying. We're going to break down this Acadia extension through the eyes of 4 very different travelers. I've got the backpacker, the mid-range couple, the family, and the luxury traveler.
A full spectrum.
And we are going to give you a definitive verdict on whether you should book this trip or, maybe just stay on land and eat some blueberries.
And to frame this whole discussion, we've pulled out 3, let's call them contrarian surprises. These are 3 major points from the source material that really go against almost all the standard travel advice you'll ever hear about Maine.
Okay, let's hear them. Number 1.
The best kayaking is not actually in Acadia National Park.
That feels wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
Acadia is the brand name. It's why people go.
It's the brand, absolutely, but it's not the best water, and we'll get into exactly why that is.
Okay. Number 2.
You likely should not bring your own boat. Even if you're an avid kayaker and you've got a beautiful boat at home, the advice is to leave it there.
Huh. That seems counterintuitive. I assume that's a logistics thing.
It's a huge logistical argument that saves a ton of headaches.
And number 3, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around.
It's my favorite one. The fog is actually the best part of the whole experience.
Okay, you're going to have to sell me on that one, because that just sounds terrifying.
I stand by it. If you know what you're doing, the fog is magical. If you don't, yes, it's terrifying. But we'll get there.
All right, let's start with the context. Why are we even talking about this now? What is the current state of tourism in Maine that makes this idea of an escape to the water so appealing?
Well, you really have to look at the post-COVID travel boom. It changed everything. Acadia National Park, specifically, has seen its visitation numbers just skyrocket.
I've seen the pictures.
We are talking about millions of people cramming themselves onto Mount Desert Island, which, when you look at it on a map, is not that big of a place.
I was reading about the traffic on the Park Loop Road, and the descriptions sound like the LA freeway at rush hour.
That's not an exaggeration. It is urban-level congestion, but in a wilderness setting.
Yeah.
And Bar Harbor, which is the main gateway town, it just becomes this massive bottleneck.
Right.
You have cruise ships that are dumping thousands of passengers ashore for the day. You've got RVs the size of buses trying to navigate these little streets. You have families in minivans, and the whole atmosphere just becomes frantic.
You go there to relax, but the first thing you feel is stress.
Exactly. You end up hunting for a parking spot for 45 minutes. You're standing in line for popcorn. You're dodging selfie sticks on what's supposed to be a quiet trail. It's that classic loving a place to death phenomenon.
Yeah, we see that in so many national parks now.
You do. And this creates a very specific psychological state in the traveler. The source has a great name for it, the escape from the escape.
The escape from the escape.
Think about it. You plan this whole vacation to escape your job, your stress, your daily grind. But then the vacation itself becomes incredibly stressful. So you find yourself standing on a crowded shore, surrounded by people, and you look out at the ocean.
And the ocean looks empty. It looks peaceful.
It looks silent. It looks pristine. And you think to yourself, if I can just get out there, I'll finally find the peace I was promised.
Yeah.
That assumption is what drives thousands of people to the water. They view the ocean as just, blue land that no one's using.
But as we've already established, the ocean is not a playground. It's a genuinely hostile environment.
And that's where that Instagram lie becomes actually dangerous. You see all the photos of the perfect blue sky and that golden hour light, but the photos don't tell you about the water temperature. They don't show you the current ripping around a headland.
Right.
The source really emphasizes that the North Atlantic is volatile. The weather can change in 20 minutes. It requires a level of respect that a lot of casual tourists just don't have because they've been trained by vacations to the Caribbean or Florida where the water is warm and forgiving. This water is not forgiving.
There's also a big organizational shift happening on the Maine coast that I wasn't really aware of before reading this. Can you unpack the role of MITA for us?
Yes. MIT. That's the Maine Island Trail Association. And if you're going to understand modern kayaking in Maine, you absolutely have to understand MITA.
Okay.
So historically, Maine has thousands of islands. I mean, just a staggering number. Some are state-owned, but a huge portion of them are privately owned. For generations, there was this loose, unwritten maritime rule of, let's call it permissive access.
Like an honor system?
Kind of. You could paddle out, land on a pretty island, camp for the night, clean up after yourself, and leave.
Yeah.
It was sort of the Wild West of coastal camping.
And I'm guessing that started to change.
It did. As kayaking got more popular, and especially as coastal land values just went through the roof, landowners got nervous. They didn't want people trashing their pristine islands, and they really didn't want people suing them if they got hurt. So access started to shut down. Gates went up. No trespassing signs appeared.
And that's where MIT comes in.
Exactly. Mighty stepped in to be the intermediary. They went to these private landowners, families who'd owned an island for a century, timber companies, conservation trusts, and they made a deal. They said, if you let us put your island on our official trail, we will steward it for you. We will have volunteers who go out and clean it. We'll build sustainable campsites. We will insure it.
So it's basically like the Appalachian Trail, but for boats.
That's the perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And it completely unlocked the coast again. Now, if you're a member of IVATIA, you get a guidebook and an app that shows you exactly which islands are open for camping. It's an incredible system. You can literally camp on a private island that might be worth $5 million, all for the cost of a $50 membership.
That's an amazing deal. But there has to be a flip side to that kind of organization, right?
There is. It's the double-edged sword of concentration because now everyone has the same guidebook. Everyone has the same app, so everyone knows about and goes to the same best
These
islands.
secret spots aren't secret anymore.
Exactly. 10 years ago, you might have just explored until you found a cool spot to camp. Now, you are actively competing for the one campsite on Jewel Island or the 3 tent platforms on Hell's Half Acre.
So you need a plan A and a plan B and probably plan C.
You absolutely do. You cannot just wing it anymore on a holiday weekend. The beautiful spontaneity of the old days has been replaced by, well, by logistics.
Speaking of logistics, let's shift to the sensory experience. The source material describes what it calls a tale of two arrivals, which I thought was just a brilliant way to capture this vibe shift we're talking about.
It's the contrast that defines the entire trip.
Let's start with arrival number one, Bar Harbor. You've just driven 5 or 6 hours from Boston or New York. You finally cross that bridge onto Mount Desert Island. What hits you?
The very first thing that hits you is the traffic on Route 3. It's just bumper to bumper. But then, as you get into town, it's the smell. If you roll down your car window in downtown Bar Harbor in July, you are not smelling pine trees.
What are you smelling?
You are smelling fried dough. You're smelling diesel exhaust from the tour buses and the RVs. You're smelling sunscreen and hot asphalt.
It sounds like a state fair or a carnival.
It feels like a cruise ship terminal because functionally, that's what it is. The dominant emotion you feel isn't peace, it's anxiety. Specifically, parking anxiety. Every single driver is just scanning for a spot. They're aggressive, they're tense. It sets this incredibly frantic tone for your whole trip.
Okay, so that's arrival one. Now let's cut to arrival number two, the launch site. The source mentions places like Stonington or Seal Cove. These are maybe an hour's drive away from Bar Harbor, but they sound like they're on a different planet.
A different planet entirely. It's a total sensory reset. You drive down one of these long peninsulas away from the t-shirt shops and the neon signs. You pull into a working harbor or a little gravel landing. You step out of the car, and the first thing that hits you is that smell.
And what does that smell like?
It smells like low-tide mud. Now, some people might think that's a gross smell, but to a paddler, that is the smell of life. It's sulfurous, it's salty, it's organic and rich, and it's mixed with the smell of spruce resin from the trees right at the water's edge. That sharp, piney scent, it just smells clean and wild.
And there's a physical shock that comes with it, too.
The temperature drop, this is wild to experience. You can be in Bangor, just an hour inland, and it's 85 degrees and humid. You step out of your car onto the dock in Stonington, right next to that massive body of 55-degree water, and the air temperature plummets to 65. It's breezy, it's crisp.
The source says you have to layer up almost immediately.
You do. You get out of your nice air-conditioned car, and the first thing you do is reach for a fleece or a windbreaker. And that simple physical act, putting on a jacket in the middle of August, it signals to your brain that the rules have changed. You are not in the summer vacation world anymore. You are in the maritime world.
The whole visual landscape shifts, too. It's not just pretty water anymore.
No. The water itself looks serious. It looks heavy. It's this deep, dark green or sometimes gray. It doesn't invite you to just jump in and splash around. It demands respect. And then you see the industry.
We're talking about the lobster buoys.
The working coast. This is such a crucial concept. You are not entering a sterile manicured park. You are entering a factory floor. The entire surface of the ocean is this incredible minefield of thousands and thousands of colorful styrofoam pot buoys.
Every color of the rainbow.
Every color.
What?
And every single one of those is attached to a heavy lobster trap on the bottom with a rope.
Navigating through that must be tricky.
It's like a constant slalom course. But it also has this huge psychological impact. You see the lobster boats out there hauling their traps. They are working. You are playing. And it makes you feel small. It makes you realize that this place does not exist for your entertainment. It exists for a livelihood. You are a guest, and a very small one at that.
Let's talk about the economics of being a guest in this place. Because usually when we think of outdoor adventure or dirtbag style trips, we think cheap. But the source suggests the Acadia extension has this really extreme cost variance.
It's massive. You can do this trip for almost nothing, or you can spend a small fortune. And it depends almost entirely on one thing: your skill level.
Okay, let's break down the cost. Let's start with accommodation. If you're that scrappy dirtbag and you're trying to do this on a shoestring budget, where are you sleeping?
If you are the scrappy dirtbag, you are camping. And ideally, you're camping on the Maine Islands. If you have your $50 membership, Many of these incredible islands are free or maybe donation-based, so
Yeah.
you are sleeping on a private island with $1 million view for $0 a night.
That sounds incredible, but what if you can't get to the islands? Or what if you don't have the skills yet?
Then you're in trouble financially. The public camping in the park at places like Blackwoods or Seawall, it's about $30 a night,
Hmm.
which is reasonable.
Yeah.
But, and this is a huge warning, it books out 6 months in advance. The minute the reservation window opens on the website, every single spot for July and August is gone.
So if I decide today that I want to go to Maine next week, I am not camping in the national park.
Not a chance. So now you're pushed out into the private market. You're looking for motels. And because of the insane demand, a basic run-of-the-mill two-star motel in Ellsworth or Trenton, it's going to run you $150 to $250 a night
For a roadside motel.
for a totally unremarkable roadside motel. And if you want that classic New England bed and breakfast experience right in Bar Harbor, you should start your budget at $400 a night and expect it to go up to $800 pretty quickly.
Okay, that's just a place to sleep. What about the kayaking itself? The gear?
This is where the hidden costs really bite the casual traveler. Let's say you've kayaked a few times on a lake. You're comfortable. You think, I'll just rent a boat for a few days and go do some island camping.
Sounds like a reasonable plan.
It's an impossible plan. Most reputable outfitters in Maine will not rent you a proper sea kayak for a solo multi-day trip unless you can prove you have rescue skills.
So they're gatekeeping the boats.
They have to. It's a liability and safety issue. They will want to see a certification, like from the American Canoe Association, or they will literally ask you to get in the water at their dock and demonstrate a wet exit and a self-rescue. If you can't do it, you don't get the boat, period.
So what's the alternative then for the person who can't do a self-rescue but still wants to get out there?
You have to hire a guide, and that changes the entire financial equation of the trip. A guided half-day trip is maybe $150 per person. A full multi-day expedition where the guide is providing the food, the tents, the boats, the navigation, the safety. You're going to be spending between $800 and $1,200 per person.
So let's put that in perspective. The scrappy dirtbag with their own gear and skills pays maybe $300 for a whole week, gas, food, fees, and the unskilled but enthusiastic traveler is paying $1,500 for that same week.
Exactly. Skill is currency in this environment. Knowing how to rescue yourself from a capsize literally save you $1,000.
There's one other economic indicator we absolutely have to discuss. The source calls it the lobster roll benchmark.
The Big Mac Index of New England coastal travel.
So what are we looking at for prices right now? Lay it on me.
It is genuinely shocking to people who haven't been in a few years. The current market price for a lobster roll, which is, let's be honest, a hot dog bun with some meat and mayonnaise, is hovering between $30 and $45.
$45 for a sandwich.
It's a perfect storm of supply and demand. The lobster catch fluctuates, the fuel prices for the boats are way up, and frankly, the tourists are willing to pay it. But what that means is a simple lunch for a family of 4 can easily hit $200.
Even the grocery stores on the islands, they mark things up, right?
And yeah, you'll see about a 10 to 15% markup. It's the island tax. Getting goods out there on a ferry costs money.
So when you add all this up, is the value actually there?
It depends on your approach. The source argues pretty convincingly that the scrappy dirtbag approach is maybe the highest value travel experience in all of North America. I mean, think about it. You have a private island, you have silence, seals, incredible sunsets, all for the cost of a tank of gas and some groceries. It feels like you're cheating the system.
For the guided client paying top dollar.
The value is different. It's not about saving money. You are paying for stress reduction. You're paying so that you don't have to worry about the fog rolling in or what the tide is doing or trying to cook dinner in a howling wind. You are buying safety and expertise. And given the environment we're talking about, that is a very, very valid purchase.
Let's talk more about why you might need to buy that safety. The source outlines this logistical gauntlet in the form of what it calls the 3 traps. These are the specific things that can turn a dream trip into an absolute disaster.
Yeah, these traps are very specific to the coast of Maine. If you aren't ready for them, they will ruin your week, guaranteed.
Okay, trap number 1, the tide trap. We mentioned the 12-foot swing, but walk me through a specific scenario of how this actually traps a kayaker.
Okay, so imagine this. It's noon. It's high tide. You paddle into this beautiful, picturesque little cove. There's a nice gravel beach at the back of it. You pull your kayak up, say, 5 or 10 feet from the water's edge. Seems safe enough. You get out, grab your lunch, maybe you hike into the woods a little bit, take a nap in the sun. You come back at 2 p.m.,
Just 2 hours later.
just 2 hours later. The tide has started to go out. But because that cove has a very shallow, gentle slope, the water hasn't just dropped vertically. It has receded horizontally. The water's edge is now 300, maybe 400 yards away from your boat.
That's 3 or 4 football fields.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And the ground between you and the water isn't nice, hard-packed sand. It's what's called mud flats. It is this thick, sucking glacial silt covered in seaweed. It will pull your boots right off your feet.
So you can't just drag the boat.
I mean, you can try. A fully loaded sea kayak can weigh 100 pounds or more. Trying to drag that thing 300 yards through knee-deep, stinking mud is one of the most exhausting and demoralizing things you can do. You can pull a muscle, twist an ankle. So effectively, you are stranded. You have no choice but to sit there for 4 or 5 hours until the water comes back to you.
That completely ruins the day.
It's humiliating. But the reverse scenario is actually much more dangerous. You arrive at low tide, find a nice flat spot for your tent near the water, you go sleep. You wake up at 2 a.m. floating inside your tent. That's a genuine hypothermia situation.
And the fix for this trap is?
You have to be able to read a tide chart. It's not optional. And practically you ask the locals. You ask your outfitter, where is the high water mark? Where is the storm line? You look for the line of dried seaweed and driftwood way up on the beach. You never, ever guess.
Okay. Trap number 2, the launch site trap.
This is all about access. People look at Google Maps, they see a little road that ends at the pretty blue water, and they think, perfect, I'll just launch my boat there.
Seems logical. I would probably do that.
In Maine, that is a trap. You drive down that long, winding road, and you find a gate with a chain across it, or a no parking sign, or a town residents only sign. Maine has very, very strong private property rights. Just because you can see the water does not mean you are allowed to touch it.
And I'm guessing parking is scarce even at the public spots.
Incredibly scarce. Even at the designated public landings, the parking lot might only hold 6 cars. If you arrive at 9 a.m. on a Saturday in July, it is already full. So now you're stuck, driving around with a 17-foot boat on your roof, getting more and more frustrated.
So the advice from the source is basically just pay the money.
Just pay the money. Use a verified commercial launch site like Old Quarry in Stonington. Pay the $10 or $20. You get safe parking, you get advice, you get clean bathrooms. Don't try to be clever and find some secret free spot. You'll just get towed or waste half your day.
All right, that brings us to trap number 3, the fog trap. This goes back to our earlier contrarian point. But before we talk about why it's good, let's explain the danger.
The danger is total sensory deprivation. And the fog in Maine is not some gentle mist. It is a wall of white. You can launch in bright, beautiful sunshine at 10 in the morning. Then the wind shifts just slightly, pulls that cold, moist air from the ocean over the warmer land, and boom. By 1 p.m., you can't see the front of your own kayak.
So visibility is basically 0.
It's 50 feet if you're lucky. Landmarks you were using to navigate completely disappear. Islands vanish. And sound gets really weird and distorted. You hear a lobster boat engine, but you can't tell where it's coming from. It sounds like it's on your left and on your right. It's incredibly disorienting.
And this is where people get into trouble by relying on their phones.
This is the tech trap inside the fog trap. People think, it's fine, I have Google Maps.
Yeah.
But 2 miles offshore, there is no cell tower. Your GPS signal might be weak. Or your screen gets wet and it won't register your touch. Or the cold just drains your battery in 20 minutes. If your phone is your only navigation tool, you are effectively blind and lost.
So you need the old school analog skills.
You absolutely need them. You need a proper deck-mounted compass, you need a paper chart and a waterproof case on your deck, and you need to have practice using them before you go.
And a foghorn, the source mentioned.
Non-negotiable. If you hear a boat engine getting louder but you can't see it, you blast that horn. It's the universal signal for tiny plastic boat here. Please don't run me over.
So with all that real, palpable danger, why on earth did the source claim that the fog is the best part?
Because when you do have the skills, when you're not panicking because you trust your compass and your chart, the fog changes the entire world. The wind usually dies down completely. The water becomes oily and calm. The world shrinks to a 50-foot circle around your boat. It's incredibly quiet and peaceful.
It sounds very atmospheric, almost meditative.
It is. It feels like you're paddling through a cloud. It forces you to be completely present in a way that bright sunshine just doesn't. It's a profound experience, but only if you're not terrified of being lost.
Let's move into what the source calls the grit. We've talked about these external traps, but now let's talk about the physical reality of living out of a tiny boat in Maine. The source is pretty blunt about safety and comfort.
Yeah, it doesn't sugarcoat it at all.
The number one killer out there isn't sharks. It's not getting run over by a boat. It's the cold.
Propothermia.
Yeah.
We have to keep hammering this point home. 55-degree water.
Walk me through what happens to the human body at that temperature.
Okay, so the moment you fall in unexpectedly, your body goes into something called cold water shock. The first thing that happens is an involuntary gasp reflex. You just suck in air. If your head happens to be underwater at that moment, you suck in water. You can drown instantly without even taking a breath.
And if you survive that initial gasp,
Then you have about 10 to 15 minutes of what's called functional disability. The cold water makes the blood rush from your extremities, your hands and feet, to protect your core organs. Within minutes, your fingers stop working. They become useless claws. You can't zip a zipper. You can't hold onto a rescue line. You can't climb back into your boat, even if you know how.
that is just terrifying. You become completely helpless in a matter of minutes.
You do. And that is why the right gear is absolutely non-negotiable. You must wear a wetsuit or a dry suit if you are doing any kind of open water crossing. If an outfitter tries to rent you a kayak and says, oh, it's a nice day out, just wear shorts and a t-shirt, you should turn around and walk away. They are being negligent. The rule is you dress for the water temperature, not the air temperature.
Let's lighten the mood slightly, if we can. Let's talk about bugs. The biological hazards.
Ah, yes. The greenhead fly.
The source makes them sound like something out of a horror movie.
They are legitimately nasty. A mosquito is annoying. It sort of pokes you with a needle. A greenhead fly has these mandibles that work like tiny serrated scissors. They literally saw a chunk of skin out of you to get the blood flowing.
Ouch! That's vivid.
And they are fast. They're relentless. And here's the kicker. Your standard chemical repellents like DEET or citronella, they couldn't care less. They're visual hunters.
So you can't just spray them away.
No. The only real defense is physical barriers. Long-sleeve shirts, long pants, thick socks, preferably light-colored clothing.
So let's get this picture straight. You're on a stunningly beautiful island. It's the middle of August, but you're bundled up in a wetsuit or heavy canvas pants because you're either freezing or you're being eaten alive.
It is definitely not the bikini and board shorts vibe you get in the Caribbean. You are essentially wearing armor against the elements at all times.
And finally, let's talk about the ultimate filter. The one thing that truly separates the casual tourist from the committed traveler in this environment: sanitation.
The wag bag.
Please explain what a wag bag is for those who are blissfully unaware.
Okay, so these beautiful granite islands have very, very thin soil. It's mostly just rock with a little bit of moss and duff on top. You cannot dig a proper cat hole to bury your human waste like you would in a deep forest. It just won't decompose. It'll just sit there.
So leave no trace means you have to pack it out.
Leave no trace, taken to its most literal extreme. Use what's called a WAG bag. It stands for waste alleviation and gelling. It's a specialized double bag system with a gelling powder inside that neutralizes the smell, for the most part,
Right.
and solidifies the waste.
And then what?
You do your business in the bag, you seal it all up, you put it inside a hard plastic tube called a poop tube to protect it, and you carry it in your kayak hatch with your food and your tent for the rest of the trip.
That is an intimate travel experience.
It's a huge reality check. The source is very clear. If you are grossed out by the idea of carrying your own poop in a bag for 3 days, this trip is probably not for you. It's a major, major filter.
So let me recap. We have dangerously cold water, disorienting fog, sucking mud, flesh-eating flies, and poop tubes. Why in God's name does anyone do this?
Because of the magic. Because the highs are so incredibly high.
Let's talk about those highs. The source gets almost poetic when it describes these magic moments.
The biggest one, the one that everyone talks about, is the bioluminescence.
The source mentions a specific campsite, Hell's Half Acre.
It's a famous spot for it. In the late summer, the water in Maine fills with these tiny microorganisms, dinoflagellates, and they emit light whenever they're disturbed.
Like fireflies, but in the water.
So much better than fireflies. The source describes going out at night in a kayak when there's no moon. Every single time you dip your paddle into the water just explodes in a swirl of neon blue-green light. You can run your hand through the water, and it looks like you were painting with blue fire.
And you can't take a picture of it.
And that's the best part. It's too faint for an iPhone camera. You can't put it on Instagram. It is a purely ephemeral, personal experience. You have to be there in the dark, probably shivering a little from the cold to see it. It feels like actual, real magic.
Wow. There's also the satisfaction of navigation. We talked about the fear of the fog, but there's a flip side to that coin.
It's the feeling of pure competence. Imagine you are in that thick, disorienting fog. You can't see anything, but you've done your homework. You take a bearing off your chart. Let's say it's 270 degrees west. You put your boat on that bearing and you just stare at your compass. You paddle for 45 minutes, trusting the math, trusting the needle, and then, out of the gray mist, a dark shape starts to materialize. And it's the dock. It's the island, exactly where it was supposed to be.
That must feel incredible, like a superpower.
It makes you feel so capable. You aren't just a passive observer looking at nature. You are actively surviving in it. You're navigating through it, using your own skill. That builds this deep, primal kind of confidence that you just don't get from sitting on a tour bus.
But the trip has an emotional arc, and it seems to end with a crash. The source talks about the culture shock of returning to the mainland.
This hits everyone, and it hits them hard. You've just been on an island for 3 or 4 days. The only sounds you've heard are waves and gulls and wind. You paddle back to the launch, you load your car, and then you decide to drive into Bar Harbor to get a celebratory burger.
And the noise just hits you like a wall.
The noise, the smell of diesel exhaust again, the crowds of people, the rampant consumerism, it feels jarring. The source describes it as feeling like a physical blow. You suddenly realize how loud and frantic and stressful our normal lives are. You can actually ruin the relaxation of the whole trip if you're not mentally prepared for that re-entry.
One last disappointment the source mentions, and it's a quirky one. Purple paint.
This is a legal quirk specific to Maine.
Yeah.
If you are walking or paddling and you see a vertical purple stripe painted on a tree or a post, it is the legal equivalent of a no trespassing sign.
So it replaces a sign.
Exactly. And in Maine, landowners are very serious about it. So you might be paddling along and you see this stunningly beautiful cove, the perfect spot for a lunch break. But then you see that little slash of purple paint on a tree at the edge of the beach.
And you can't land there.
You have to keep paddling. It can be really frustrating to see miles and miles of beautiful coastline that you are legally barred from ever setting foot on. It's a constant reminder that you are a visitor and that access is a privilege, not a right.
Okay, let's get into the practical how-to section. The source was very clear. The best kayaking isn't actually in Acadia, so if I want to plan this trip properly, where should I be looking? We have 3 main alternatives.
These are the big 3 alternatives to paddling right around the main park loop on Mount Desert Island.
Let's start with option 1, Stonington and Deer Isle. The source calls this one the better Acadia.
Stonington is the lobster capital of the state of Maine. It's about an hour's drive south of Bar Harbor. And the geography here is just spectacular. It's home to an archipelago called Merchant Row.
What exactly is Merchant Row?
It's this incredibly dense cluster of dozens and dozens of islands. The granite there is this beautiful pink color. The spruce trees are a deep green. The water is this dark, clear blue. It is visually stunning, like the platonic ideal of the Maine coast.
And why is it better for kayaking than, say, Bar Harbor?
Because while it's a busy harbor, it's busy with working lobster boats, not giant cruise ships and tourist ferries. The logistics are infinitely easier because of the old quarry launch site. It's a commercial hub that is specifically designed for kayakers. If your main goal is pure island hopping and camping, Stonington is the absolute gold standard.
Okay, option 2, Muscongas Bay.
This is a bit further south in what's called the Mid-Coast region. This is the historical birthplace of the Main Island Trail. The vibe here is much, much quieter. There are no ferries. There are no cruise ships. The water is a little bit more protected from the open ocean.
Yeah.
The source specifically mentions Crow Island, which has these incredible wildflower meadows in the summer. If you want deep silence and solitude, and you're maybe an intermediate paddler, Muscongas Bay is the place to find it.
And option 3, Casco Bay. The source called this the light version.
Right. This is the area right off of Portland. And it's great because it's so accessible. You can actually take a public ferry with your kayak out to some of the outer islands like Cliff Island or Long Island.
That sounds a lot easier logistically.
It is. And because you're so close to Portland, you feel a bit safer. There's more boat traffic, you're closer to civilization. If you run out of coffee, you're just a short paddle away from a town where you can get a latte. It's a great safety net location for beginners or families with older, capable teenagers.
The source also offered an ideal combo itinerary. If I have 5 days for a trip, how do I do this right?
The advice is brilliant, I think. It says, don't mix the streams. You need to split the trip into 2 distinct parts.
Break that down for me.
Days 1 and 2. Stay in or near Bar Harbor. Be a tourist. Embrace the tourist vibe. Go hike the Beehive Trail. Eat the famous popovers at Jordan Pond House. Drive your car up Cadillac Mountain for sunrise. Get that classic national park checklist done.
Get it out of your system.
Exactly. Then, on the morning of day 3, you leave. You drive the hour south to Stonington. You rent your kayak, or you meet your guide. And you spend days 3, 4, and 5 on the water in Stonington, in that better Acadia.
So you get the best of the land-based park and the best of the water-based adventure without compromising either one.
And you completely avoid the stress and the danger of trying to kayak in the crowded, boat-filled harbors of Acadia proper. It really does maximize the strengths of both locations.
I love that strategy. Okay, we have arrived at the moment of truth, the final verdict matrix. We need to look at our 4 traveler types and give them a definitive yes or no. Is the Acadia extension worth the money and the hassle?
Let's do it.
Traveler type 1, the backpacker or the budget traveler.
The verdict here is a resounding yes. But, and this is a big but, it comes with a caveat: high effort.
Explain that.
If you are willing and able to embrace the dirtbag lifestyle, sleeping on the ground, dealing with the bugs, eating oatmeal for breakfast, managing all your own logistics and safety, this is arguably the best value trip in the entire country. You get a world-class, million-dollar experience for pennies, but you absolutely have to have the skills to do it safely on your own.
Okay. Traveler type 2, the mid-range couple. They're looking for a unique romantic getaway.
The verdict for them is also yes. In fact, the source calls this the sweet spot.
But they recommend spending some serious money here.
They do. The advice is, don't skimp. Hire a private guide for a 3-day, 2-night trip. It's going to cost you maybe $2,500 for the 2 of you.
That's a lot of money for a camping trip.
It is. But you have to compare it to the alternative. You could spend that same $2,500 on a mediocre hotel and a few nice dinners in Bar Harbor. The guided kayaking trip will create memories that will bond you together for years. You overcome challenges together. You see things that almost no one else gets to see. It is an investment in the relationship itself.
Or it breaks you up.
That's true, too. If you can't handle a little adversity together, you will find that out very, very quickly on a foggy island with no cell service.
Traveler type 3, the family, specifically with kids under, say, the age of 12.
The verdict here is a very hard no.
That seems harsh. I mean, kids love boats. They love camping.
Kids love boats when it's warm and fun and they can jump in the water. They do not love 55-degree water, a cold wind that's been blowing for 3 hours, and no bathrooms.
It really comes down to being a liability issue.
It's a massive liability. Managing a potentially hypothermic 7-year-old 2 miles offshore is a parent's absolute worst nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
It is just too dangerous and too stressful for everyone involved. The source is to stick to the inland lakes or take them on the big harbor tour boats where there are bathrooms and snacks. Wait until they are capable, resilient teenagers.
Finally, traveler type 4, the luxury traveler.
For this one, the verdict is IT. Depends.
Depends on what?
It depends entirely on your personal definition of luxury. If your idea of luxury is 1,000 thread count sheets, 24-hour room service, and perfect climate control, this is a hard no. You will absolutely hate this trip. You're pooping in a bag and sleeping in a tent.
But if luxury means something else.
Exactly. If luxury to you means exclusivity and silence, if it means privacy, if it means access to places no one else can go, if it means having a private guide who is also a gourmet chef cook you a fresh lobster dinner on an uninhabited island where you are the only 2 human beings for miles around, then yes, it is the ultimate luxury. It is experiential luxury, not comfort luxury.
So to wrap all of this up, what are the key takeaways for someone listening who is now ready to book this trip?
I'd say there are 3 main things. 1, respect the logistics. The ocean is the boss, not you. Do your homework on the tides and the fog. 2, pay for expertise. If you don't have the skills, hire a guide. It is worth every single penny. And 3, learn to embrace the cold. It's part of the package. It's what makes it Maine.
And what about timing? Is there a best time to go?
Yes. The source calls it the Goldilocks window, and it is September 5th to September 20th.
Why that specific 2-week period?
It's the sweet spot. The ocean water is at its warmest point of the entire year, which is still cold, but it's relatively warmer. The bugs, especially the greenheads and mosquitoes, are mostly gone after the first cold nights, and the big summer crowds have thinned out because schools are all back in session. It is the absolute perfect time.
I want to leave our listeners with one final thought from the source. It was about the ultimate vibe of this trip, what it really feels like.
Yeah, that was a great line. The ultimate vibe isn't that sunny, easy, picture-perfect paddle. That's not the core memory you're going to take away. The real core memory is waking up on a slab of granite. The fog is so thick you can't see the water, but you can hear it lapping just a few feet away. You're holding a mug of hot coffee, and you feel very, very small.
You feel like a guest in a wild, powerful world.
And that is a feeling that is getting harder and harder and harder to find.
Well, there you have it, the definitive guide to the Acadia extension. Whether you're ready to pack your dry suit and your wag bags, or you've decided to stick to the popovers and the comfort of the land, now you know.
See you out on the water.
Or maybe in the parking lot. Thanks for listening.